All right, what up? Welcome to the Me Dwelle podcast. I am Stuart Anderson, your host here with Kristen Anderson in this episode. We gratefully interview Tiff Larson all about her cycling career, her life on and off Zwift. If you've been on Zwift with us, then you know Tiff. And in this episode, we learn all about that story. We learn about her cycling journey, how she got into cycling, and obviously hear some great advice from her as one of the strongest women cyclists that we have ever met, as well as one of the best people we've ever met. So we're grateful for Tiff, thankful for her husband, Don. You might know Don also. You'll hear that story a little bit as well. Although Don doesn't join us, maybe we'll have Don on in a future episode. Stay tuned. But super grateful for Tiff and thankful for the time she spends, not only on the episode, but all the time she gives on Zwift to make that a great place to be and to ride together and to train together. So hopefully you enjoy this episode. Thankful for all the kit orders for 2023. They are in and Volley is working on them. And we're also big thanks to Jake Cook, who is the head camp chef for Team Camp coming up in April. He sent out a big message to the team GroupMe. So if you're not on that yet, that means you haven't paid team dues. Anyone who's paid team dues, I put them on GroupMe so you can get all the updates about what's coming for Team Camp, Team Zwift Rise, etc. So enjoy this episode. Grateful for each of you, and thanks for tuning in. All right, enjoy. Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 75. 75. That's a lot of episodes. It is.
Podcasting.
A lot of we're like official podcasters. I think we have over 20,000 downloads of podcasts. That's kind of fun. Anyway,
Congratulations.
Okay. I guess I'm the only one excited. Cool. So I have Kristen here with me and Tiffany Larson. Hey, Tiff.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going very good. Tiff's already hiding her face. Tiff, you can look at us. And
It's already embarrassing.
Tiff avoided being on. It's very humble. We're very grateful to have her on. She's going to tell her story. If you don't know Tiff Larson, here's your chance. So we're super excited you join us. This is going to be really fun. Any announcements, Kristen? Anything we need to cover before we move forward?
I hope you got your kits ordered.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear like, oh, can you open it back up? I forgot my kit order.
That was a good whiny voice. Who are you trying to mimic right there? Whose whiny voice is that?
I'm not naming names.
Do you think you could get me a wind jacket? Sorry.
I didn't get all of the emails and
kit order is closed. If you're listening to this, it's closed. It closed January 9th. Kits will ship 1st of February, and we will open it back up in the summer. So that's fine. It's okay. But yeah, thank you. Really good humor there, Kristen. Thanks a lot. Tiff, interesting side note. You also, not as part of Me Dwelle, we ride Volley, but your team in Idaho also wears Volley.
We do.
Yeah.
Love it.
Great company. We love Volley, and that's fun that we can trade insider secrets on what we wear. So very cool. Team Camp. So don't forget April. I got to open my calendar. I think it's the 13th, April 13th through the 16th. We're going to be down in St. George. So work on your lodging. But yeah, Team Camp will start April 13th, Thursday afternoon. Then we'll do a big ride Friday the 14th. And then Saturday the 15th. And then you can hang around Saturday or just go home Saturday. But a lot of fun stuff. Tiff, a interesting side note, the first official raffle prize was provided by Taylor Dame. He knows the race director of your big race, what is it? Sawtooth. Will you talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, Taylor told me about that this morning on Zwift. So Sawtooth used to be known as the LP200. Lyle Pearson is the local Mercedes-Benz dealer and sponsored this relay from Boise to Sun Valley and / Ketchum. Sun Valley's the resort, Ketchum's the town. Anyway, LP's been a popular relay, about the same distance as Laude, more climbing actually. I think it's about 11,000 total. Yeah, and so last year, one of our Team Real dudes, Toby Bingham, talked to race director to convince them to do a Sawtooth uncut to basically allow people to do the full distance alone. So you can do it as a relay. It's a great, honestly, such a beautiful relay. It's arguably a lot more fun as a relay. We've had some great times. Relay, you have fun in the car. There's a descent where people like Dawn will descend so fast that in the car, you're trying to beat your rider to the next exchange.
That's fun.
Because the bikes will pass cars on that descent. It's a windy one. Anyway, beautiful. It goes over a couple of passes outside of Boise. You go up past Lucky Peak Reservoir up into the mountains into Stanley, which is where the amazing Idaho Sawtooth Mountains are, and Redfish Lake. Beautiful valley. Tough. It's not really a climb there. It's kind of a low grade climb, but always windy through that valley, and then up over Galena Pass, and then you drop down
nice.
into Sun Valley. Gorgeous.
Yeah, very cool. So we'll raffle off a free entry to that. And I know a few guys from Midwelle rode that last year, got rained out. I know Zach Pape I watched the video, the famous Taylor Dame video of dudes going hypothermic in the car. So hopefully better weather in 2023, but very fun. That'll be cool. Awesome.
Yeah, I think it's the first weekend in June-ish.
Yeah, I'm not
first
sure.
or second weekend in June. And so the weather is typically good, but can be iffy that time of year. I've heard of snowstorms. It's not the normal, but it's early to be doing a 200. So, but if guys have their eyes on laude, it's a prep, peak there and then peak later. You're all set for laude once you do that, I guess.
Very cool. Let me get a brief history here. So Tiff and I actually met through her husband, Don, in 2017. Don and I rode Lotija with Toby. So fun. Don actually ended up winning that year. I think he won. Or maybe Steve won. I don't remember.
I'm not sure which year it was. Don's got a
remember.
couple of W's there. Yeah, there was one year Don and Steve and Toby got in a breakaway, and the three of them had to decide who won.
That's the one.
And since Don had won the previous year, he said, "It's not me, you guys decided." So they tossed a coin basically, and
Nice.
Steve won, then Toby. Yeah.
That's the one. Okay, so I met Don there, which led to me meeting you, which met Kristen you guys have raced together, haven't you guys spent? Yeah. What year was that? Do you remember what year that was? Was that 2020?
Yes.
I'm thinking maybe 2018 is the first year I met Kristen.
Yeah.
Because I had ridden laude the previous year, 2017, with a friend of hers. Rode all day. Spacing on her name right now. Help me out, Kristen. Chelsea. And then, so the next year, Chelsea's like, "Hey, this is my friend Kristen. She's going to ride with us, but she has a knee." That was the year you had a knee problem.
Oh, knee. Yeah.
I didn't make it very far.
Mm-hmm.
So we met, but we didn't get to ride together with her injury too much.
Okay.
And then cool. a couple other laudes with Kristen.
I asked Don to write just a short introduction to Tiff, and you guys know Tiff. You know Tiff if you are riding with us on the Hamster Wheel to Nowhere on Zwift. If you are participating in that activity, this is Tiff. So we're really grateful to have Tiff on. This little intro is from Don. He says it all started in 1993 when I bought Tiff new but dented. What does that mean? Was he got like it's like a dented frame, specialized Allez?
We were kind of newlyweds, and he found a good deal on a frame that I think had been sitting around a shop and had gotten injured somehow.
Okay. It was a steel frame set from Specialized in the Avenues in Salt Lake City. She never rode it, and a neighbor still has that bike. Probably in 2009, Tiffany was given a decent carbon bike with a fit. That's really when things got rolling. She was comfortable on that bike first, and there were some, and he has in quotes, Hobble Creek moms that would ride a few days a week in the summer. I don't know who those, is that a neighborhood you guys were in?
That's funny because I know there's a Hobble Creek Canyon ride that I've actually ridden down by Provo, but our neighborhood is called Hobble Creek. And so there's a group of neighborhood moms. Yeah.
Cool. He says, one thing you have to understand about Tiffany is that she can't really do things halfway. She's more competitive than she can admit. Valedictorian, summa cum laude, basketball MVP. She can't just show up. So quickly, the women's rides were unsatisfying. Soon I was suggesting intervals to try instead of her using hills as intervals. We had some failures riding together at first, for sure. She could talk about going up Timber Trail the first time and how mad she would get when I would just suggest one more climb that she was not ready to do. Now, however, she doesn't blink. She drops men all the time and takes criticism from the kids for checking her Strava. Don't listen to them. That is social media at its
Haters.
finest.
They're
Yeah,
haters.
yeah. Now we're good. Now we're a good decade into real riding for Tiffany with race wins, Zwift notoriety. It's true. Level 60 Tiff, right? Come on, there's not very many. Successful loaded races, some sacrificed to help friends old and new, and many unforgettable rides, bike tours, joys, pains, QOMs, and friendships experienced while exploring the land on a bike. Funny thing, too, is that she has completely forgotten about the lecture she gave me about riding too much. That's very good. That's fun to share that. Okay.
Thanks,
Very
Dawn.
good. Thanks, Dawn. Tiff, maybe just talk a little bit about your history background, where you came from.
So, yeah, I grew up just north of where a lot of the Dwellys live, Bountiful, Utah.
Okay.
And Bountiful. I think I was destined to be an athlete because I hated the tap and ballet classes my mom put me in.
Oh, look at Kristen nodding.
Yeah. We're basically sisters, Kristen.
That's fun.
I wanted to play soccer. I am so old, though. I'm way older than you guys. And in those days, there weren't even all-girl leagues yet. And so when I hit second grade, there were finally all-girl leagues. And so that's when my soccer life began. Loved soccer. Still love the smell of fresh cut grass and Saturday morning. That is just soccer. Did you play soccer, Kristen?
I did.
So
yeah, a lot.
such a good game.
Mhm.
Yeah, the only reason I kind of phased out of soccer is that it wasn't a sanctioned sport. Again, my age, when I started hitting, junior high school, I kind of transitioned to basketball and volleyball because there weren't school teams for soccer. So loved basketball and volleyball. But as far as cycling as a kid, I think I was a little bit of a tomboy. I had one of those little Schwinn dirt bike. It was such a cool bike, and we made jumps. I was a pretty good jumper.
Nice.
So we'd make, the plywood jump with split logs. All the little neighborhood dudes and Tiff out there jumping our bikes, and would measure the longest jump with a little pile of grass, and then you'd move it if someone beat it.
Dude,
At some point I broke my arm jumping on my cousin's bike that was a little too small and kind of launched myself. And I think I was a little more careful after that.
So fun. We had the dirt hills, Kristen and I'm like envisioning dirt hills, same scenario.
Yeah.
I didn't have like a cool Schwinn dirt bike. I was on like a banana seat bike, but
the old banana seat. Yeah, mine was kind of cool, but my brother's was cooler because it was a Yamaha and it had shocks.
Nice.
So it came from the Yamaha shop. It was like a predecessor. This is probably early 80s. He had a bike, a yellow Yamaha bike with shocks, but it kind of had a banana seat. So I don't know what was going on, but it was cool. It probably was 50 pounds, but it was cool.
All right. So you transitioned a bit here. Let's talk about that. Just getting into cycling, getting into endurance sports. Kind of sounds like you and Dawn maybe did this together. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. It was tough. When I got into college, for my fitness and, sports satisfaction, I was used to team sports. So trying to find my way there, and Dawn and I would play basketball in between studying at the Institute of Religion at the University of Utah. And after we were married, we played pickup. Well, there would be a group of guys that would play basketball at a nearby church on Saturday mornings. So it's always kind of funny, seeing guys trying to figure out how to guard me. It's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But We had fun, but I needed like different outlets for fitness besides just trying to get a game together now and then. And so Don would drag me out for runs in the avenues, and you all know how hilly it is in the avenues. It's really not the
Yes.
greatest place to run
No.
unless you're not a narcissist, a masochist, or you're just training for a hill event, I guess. So I remember being very angry at him running hills in the avenues. But yeah, we eventually moved to Oregon, so Don could go to dental school, and we started running more. And I did my first half marathon. In fact, I remember the first time I ran 10 miles, I was like, okay, this is the runner's high. And I felt like a deer. I felt like I could run all day. That was kind of an epiphany for me, I think. So I learned to love running. Like in high school, for me, it was more of like a punishment or a necessary evil, but I learned to love running, and distance became fun and a good challenge. And I used to be a CPA and started out with Pricewaterhouse in Salt Lake City, and then transferred to Portland when we went there for Don's dental school. And then eventually I ended up working at Nike in their finance department, which was a crazy great company to work for. And the cool thing about Nike is when you get within a couple miles of the campus, almost any time of the day, there's people running.
Yeah.
When I was there were about 5,000 employees on campus, on the world headquarters in Beaverton, and everyone runs. And there's, world-class fitness facilities. And so, you just run on your lunch hour. It's what you do, eat your lunch from your desk. And so had a good time running at Nike, and ran for fitness while raising our babies and doing half marathons here and there.
Fun. So Don already mentioned a bit about how you got into cycling, but not dragged in, but was he riding a bike? I mean, was he doing endurance stuff and he was just like, hey, come on, do this with me? Or how did it work?
Yeah, he kept just saying, I think he'd really love cycling. And, like I say, I was running. Don was cycling. He's kind of a crazy dude. Stu knows this, and the guys who have ridden with him know he's a tough dude, and
He is tough.
He's tough, and I joke that he's been dropped on his head a few too many times as a child, but
Don is a medical professional. We might need to cut that out.
But literally as a kid, he grew up in Oregon. It's like an hour and a half drive in a car to the coast, but I think at 10 years old they rode their bikes to the coast. We're talking heavy old beast bikes.
Wow.
The family's like, let's ride our bikes to the coast, so gosh. I think endurance was in Don's brain and upbringing. And he loved bikes and loved cycling. When we were at the U, he got around on a bike, and his old bike got stolen at some point off our front porch in the avenues. But he was always riding. He started doing triathlons when our kids were young. And he kept saying, I think he'd really like cycling. And that bike he mentioned when he finally got me, he literally was just like, I'm going to buy you a bike because you're going to like this. So I guess that can be a little plan if there are guys who are listening who would like their wives or significant others to ride. Just buy them a bike.
Yeah, but do you buy him a nicer bike than yours, or what do you do? A dense Specialized doesn't sound very enticing as a gift.
Okay, so that was the early one that I never rode, but in 2009, see, he didn't get a good enough one, I think. So it was like 2009ish. He bought me a Raleigh Carbon. Went to the local bike store, rode a few. I'm like, wow, this one is really nice. And at the time, gosh, it was probably a couple thousand. So it was a good entry level Carbon, I think.
Nice.
Probably heavy by standards that competitive cyclists are looking at. But yeah.
What do you think, Chris? What do you think, Kristen? How is a guy? I mean, I'm not trying to break here, but I mean, a lot of the guys we ride with are like, oh, it'd be so fun to ride together as a couple. Maybe you guys, let's just talk about for one sec.
Yeah.
Is it worth exploring?
I think so, because I think it's something that a couple can do. Like, there is longevity in it. Does that make sense? Like, even if you're not competitively riding, I think it's something that, you know, when kids are gone, it's a fun thing that you can do together. Your body's like, I think, can do it. It doesn't put too much wear and tear. I don't know. I don't like to be left at home. So I'm doing what you're doing. So, you know, for me, it's like, I want to do it together. And if we're on a trip and you're riding up a mountain, then you bet your butt I'm riding up a mountain. So does that make sense?
Or
So
a volcano.
or a volcano. So it's like, for me, I just think it's a great connection. I think it's worth it, but I enjoy riding and I enjoy riding with you. So
What do you
I
think,
don't
Tiff?
know.
Thank you very much. Thank you. What do you think, Tiff? Same feelings?
You guys are the quintessential cycling couple.
So cliche.
The Adam and Eve of cycling.
Oh, that's the name of the
Don and
podcast.
I are like the grandma and grandpa couple compared to you guys.
Zacharias and Elizabeth. Sorry.
We'll save our Bible study for another chat, I guess.
Very good.
But I think it's great. I mean, when I was the wife at home with the babies, I was a little angrier, I think, because there was a time Don golfed. He went through some golfing eras, and it's like, why does golfing have to take 6 hours? And there were times that he was like, I'm going on a bike ride, and when it's 1 p.m. and he's still not home, I would just, I was fine at 10 o'clock, I was fine at 11, but I was angry at 1.
Yes.
But I guess my advice, if there are people who want to ride with their partner, significant other, if you're a competitive, hardcore dude and your significant other isn't, don't scare them off with the first ride. Learn to ride at friendly paces.
You don't think your wife's going to be impressed when you drop her on a climb? That's not impressive.
I would literally turn around and ride myself home. Like, I'd just be like, good, I hope you're having a good time.
Look at me.
Yeah, I like Don referred to, there were times that I was fairly angry at first, even when I was cycling, and his warm up was probably like threshold for me because I wasn't a very serious cyclist. And so I guess beware lest you ruin your plans in the first ride or two.
Good advice.
Make it fun, and it's okay to go easy.
Very cool. All right, you wrote in these notes 2015, 2016, 2017, things kind of, will you talk about that, how you got a little more serious?
Yeah, it started to change when I started riding with faster people. And so I'll give a shout out to my friend Sharice McMullen. She's a Team Real gal and lived here in Boise with me. She's since moved, so we don't get to ride together.
And where is she now? Because she joins us on Zwift sometimes. She's like in Arkansas.
Yeah, she's in Arkansas.
Okay.
And mostly Zwifts now. There's too many wild dogs in Arkansas roads, I hear. So, like literally.
Weird.
Yeah, so Sharice was kind of a legend status, and here in the Boise Hills. And Don had told me that, there's this chick who can ride with the guys and super strong. And I had heard about her and I was scared of her. And then she moved back to Boise, and it was at that time that I was getting kind of wanting to do a little more and go a little faster. And so I kind of reached out to her and said, hey, you want to ride with me? And she was nice enough to drag me along that summer. And my cycling just started changing. And that same year I did a bike tour with Don, Cycle Oregon. I don't know if you guys have heard of it or if anyone's ever done it. Super epic bike tours, different routes every year. But as I did that and prepared for that, I started riding with Don more because I was riding with Don on the bike tour, and it just changed my riding. I learned how to hang on to a fast peloton, and during that bike tour, we got some crazy groups of guys that were fast, and I just learned, you learn a lot when you go beyond your comfort zone, and so that changed. It was a lot of fun. And the next year, 2016, I did Seattle to Portland. which is a 200-mile ride in a day. It's different than lugged because it's pretty flat and somewhat recreational. But to do that, I knew I could do that distance, and so that was kind of a milestone for me.
Doesn't that race have a catchy name too? Isn't it like a?
They call it STP.
Oh, STP
for
okay.
short, Seattle to Portland.
Okay.
Yeah. I think like 10,000 riders do it. It's a crazy number. And the start of that race, if you're thinking about doing it, is kind of like a cycling video. It's like a video game. It's like Zwift, but real life, when you can actually crash.
Perfect. Are there guys in hand cycles?
There are recumbents. I remember Eric Denning drafting behind this guy in a recumbent. It was hilarious. And we were all like tucked in, like trying to lay down our bikes to get in this recumbent draft. But the thing that's scary about the start of that one, is it's in the dark in Seattle on these windy, hilly roads that you don't know. And they're starting it at 5:30, even though it's summer, it's still dark. And there are people just like crashing and water bottles popping off bikes and people running into, there's like road furniture. So the first few miles are scary. And then it's fine after that. I'd say the first 9 miles, if you're going to do it, just do another route and then pick up the course and ride on. Save your collarbone for another ride.
That's fun. And then in 2017, you said you started racing and found you could win. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, Sharice and I decided that we were kind of chickens. We were scared of racing, and but decided to try it. And we entered. We were training, and we had someone on our Zwift team was coaching us and giving us workouts. And we had been racing on Zwift and winning some Zwift races and having fun with that. And so we entered the local spring series in Boise and just kind of took turns winning the races, and we're surprised that we could out sprint everyone and win races and just kind of look around and be like, where are people? And we had no idea what we were doing, but it was pretty fun. So I think it was just like a confidence builder and kind of good introduction into racing.
Nice. Tiff, well, I admire you. Lots of reasons, but mainly, and this is because Kristen and I often talk about it. It is not easy to arrive at a place where there is a cultural dynamic of kind of that competitive nature of a group of guys. I know that I don't want to be weird about it, but Kristen shows up at the mouth of immigration and deals with it a lot, which sometimes, you say to yourself, well, this is going to be fun and it's a team ride. And then in 30 minutes, it's morphed into something that is not that experience. And so I admire both of you a lot for just continuing to arrive at an activity that is mainly, it's sometimes a bunch of big dumb animals. And maybe talk about could you two both share what is that? What is the motivation? I know you've got a little paragraph here about what motivates you, but could we talk about that? Is that good?
I want Kristen to go first.
Okay, you go first.
Like, what is my motivation, like, to continue coming on team rides, or?
Yeah. I mean, like arriving at an event, at a thing
with a bunch of dudes.
With dudes, yeah. With guys, yeah. Can you do that?
Yeah. I think part of it just stems from like a childhood of, I was always in that boat. So like as a kid, I was the only girl playing baseball. And as a kid, does that make sense? Like I was the only girl playing the sports. And so I'm kind of used to the dynamic of like, well, if I want to do what I enjoy, I just have to go play with the boys. And that's fine for me. Like it doesn't bother me. Getting now, it's like, it can be frustrating at times, only because I think Tiff maybe mentioned it in some of her notes. Like it is sometimes like I don't have the same body. I don't have the same recovery. And so sometimes, it gets a little frustrating, but that's not frustrating because of the group. It's just, the dynamic of like being the only female in a group of like heavy testosterone laden dudes. And so, you have to kind of like, I've learned over the years that like I have to take days off. And I have to pace myself different on longer rides. And I think it's fine. I've learned a lot about myself being pushed by guys. I mean, there's guys that we ride with that are in their 20s, for heaven's sakes. So, like, I just think my motivation is that I know that it's making me stronger. I enjoy the camaraderie more than anything of the team. I love the group. It makes me laugh. Sometimes it makes me question, like it makes me learn. It's just like surrounding yourself by so many different personalities and perspectives. And so there's, I think, a lot of things that it checks a lot of boxes for me, but those are just a few. I don't know. Did that even answer the question?
No, it was really good. Except I heard you were going to say when I ride with the buh, and then you changed it to guys, but you're going to say boys, and that's fine. We're a group of boys.
Yes.
Big boys.
Okay, Tiff, your turn.
I relate to everything Kristen said, and I referred to myself as a tomboy as a girl, and for sports, I think in a lot of ways it was that way for me. And echo everything Kristen said about riding. When I first started riding with the guys, I think I felt like I had to prove myself at first, and I would be more nervous before the rides. But as I settled in and I'm almost just one of the guys now. That sounds weird, but I don't really think of myself as being different, except it's funny. I mean, I'll just mention this because it's obvious that, and Kristen, I'm sure, deals with this all the time. We have to have pee breaks when we're riding outside, and the guys will just like turn their backs and pee on the side of the road. It's so funny that Toby and I were talking about this the other day, that it's completely normal. It's not like offensive where in another setting, if a group of men and women are standing there, guys turn around and start peeing, it would be very strange. You wouldn't normally do that in mixed company, but it is just what it is. I mean, they're modest in the sense that, anyway, they turn around, but I usually have to go down the lane. Is that what you do, Kristen? You kind of have to find a tree or something. I mean, it is just, it's an issue when you're riding, and sometimes when we're riding, it's kind of barren landscape and there's not a lot of places to hide.
That is so good. Very good.
Go ahead.
Keep going. No, I want this paragraph you wrote is so good about your biggest motivation. Could you share that too?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Don mentioned I'm competitive. I think I've learned to channel it, as a mother and someone who has to balance other aspects of my life. I don't think I'm kind of psychotic competitively, but I've learned to channel it and direct it, I guess. But I think cycling just makes me feel great. I call it bike medicine. And I know that my husband needs his bike medicine, and I can see when he misses a ride, he really misses a ride, if you know what I mean. We all need each other to ride. I feel more awake, strong, and alive. It gives me a sense of accomplishment that I don't get with a lot of the mundane tasks around the house. I work from home. I do the accounting for our dental office, and handle kind of all the financial aspects. And so I do a lot of work in the home, but it's amazing how even, a Zwift workout can give me some feelings of endorphins and accomplishment. So I just love how it makes me feel. It's just very enlivening and satisfying.
I love
that. Gives me that competitive outlet, I guess.
I agree. I was listening to a recording podcast this week about a guy outside of cycling. So this is a coach outside of, he's not a cyclist in the traditional sense, but he's kind of studied coaching cyclists. And he was talking about how as a cyclist, it is an incredible amount of skill. Okay, so he related it to a triathlete. Okay, so when a triathlete goes out, there's one thing that a triathlete does, and that is they just ride, swim, or run at the highest whatever possible. Okay, so that's it. That's what they do. And that was the example he used, that as a cyclist, the sport requires so much. So it requires strength, endurance. It requires the ability to sprint rather than just like hold long endurance, whatever. And he essentially said that as a cyclist, it is checking so many boxes as an athlete and so many different things that make you strong and alive and awake. It's very far from just like that traditional endurance athlete. I thought that was pretty cool. It's kind of insightful. It's one of the things I love about it. It's really hard to like become a great cyclist. It takes a lot of effort and training. So anyway, okay.
Yeah, and really years to build that endurance,
Yeah.
For the distance. People have asked me about that, and I've read and heard some things about just what it takes to, the length of time it takes to build the capillaries in your legs, and, to be able to go that distance. And I think a lot of it is psychological, dealing with suffering and how you talk to yourself through that long climb. And if you're starting to get dropped, what you do mentally and how you deal with suffering, I think is a lot of it. And also it's just an interesting thing as an adult to peek into your own psyche. And on some days you deal with it better than others, and suffer better on some days. But yeah, you learn a lot about doing hard things.
You do. Okay. Rapid fire questions. What are you riding, Tiff?
2021 Specialized Athos.
Lovely. Are you happy with that?
Love it.
Love it. Very good. Okay.
When we went to ODZ camp in Arizona last year, mine was the lightest bike there out of 30 plus bikes.
So cool. Nice.
Kind of bragging rights.
And then favorite local ride? We see it all the time on Strava, but maybe tell everybody.
Yeah, the Bogus climb here in Boise is just a great climb. Starts downtown and is around 4,000 feet of climbing and 16 miles, 6% average. Yeah, and it's, you start in the city and you end up in pine trees at a ski resort. And yeah, it's just a great climb. In the summer, we kind of have the road to ourselves, except for, you see when the mountain bikers wake up and you start seeing cars go by with mountain bikes on them. But yeah, it's a great climb.
I know where your favorite place to ride. Well, maybe I don't, but we share a love for your favorite place to travel and ride.
Maui.
Although
smiling.
Tiff has ridden to Hana. She has kind of like the secret system to get to Hana and back without dying. So
yeah, Hana's a good one. The bike blogs say you got to wake up early.
Like how early?
Well, if you're staying like in the Kanapali area, like we probably got up at like 5 and drove across the island. I know it's insane when you're on vacation, but we do stupid things, right?
Yeah.
But the trick is you want to start that Hana ride on your bike with the sun, like probably pre-dawn, just first light, you hit the road. And when you do that, you're 2 hours ahead of the tourists in cars.
Yeah.
And so we just read bike blogs and they're like, yeah, we do it all the time. The locals do it, but here's how you do it. So we started early. And the first time Don and I did it, we were just going to go part of the way, but it was so breathtakingly beautiful that we rode all the way to Hana and then turned around and rode back. And I think it was about 80 miles and 8,000 feet of climbing or something. It's like little intervals because you go down into each one of those switchbacks. You go down and then you climb out, down and out, down and out. There may have been a little incident coming back in on one of the bridges. The thing is, when you're coming back, then the tourists are coming towards you in the opposite direction. And by and large, they were incredibly careful with us. They would wait for us on the bridges. The bridges are where you cannot be on a car and a bike side by side. The road, even though the road's narrow, when the road is a one-way road, there was always room for a bike and a car, plenty of room. but on the bridges, there's not. So,
I don't know if I'll ever do
Justifying.
it, Tiff. I don't know if I'll ever do it.
We could do it.
honestly, it was gorgeous.
Cool.
We were there a year ago, and we went one way into Hana, and then our daughter drove the car with the kids and met us in Hana, and then we drove around the south side. But the out and back was absolutely spectacular. You see, feel, and hear way more than you do in a car. You sometimes would hear the waterfall, but not see it.
Cool.
And then sometimes on the way back, you'd be like, oh, there's that waterfall. It's down below. But if the angle, and just the sounds of the rainforest and the birds and the fresh earth, it was highly recommend. It's way more fun than Haleakala, to be honest.
You got to get up that early to do the volcano.
Yeah, that's how early we do the volcano, because
Yeah.
we're trying to get back before our kids are awake. Well, not awake, but sitting at the condo the whole day.
Yeah, in Haleakala, you need to descend before clouds come in, because clouds usually come in the afternoon. So that's kind of the Haleakala thing too. Yeah.
I lost my place. Okay, one more question. Loadages. Let's talk about that. Well, I think we'll talk about it later, but you've done 4.
Yeah.
4 podiums. Go ahead.
She's 4 for 4.
4 for 4. 4 podiums. 1 first place, 3 second places. Very good. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different thing for women, because I mean, how many men race Lodaja? 1,000 or more?
1,000.
Yeah. And so for women, all of the women race together. And the first year I did it, there were like 85 women. And then during COVID, there were fewer, right? It went, I mean, maybe half that. So the women raced together, but were divided into segments and, the separate races, I should say. So yeah, it's interesting with women. I think one thing that makes it harder for women is by race rules, we are not allowed to draft with anyone but another woman in a race, right, Kristen?
Right.
And you see many violations of that. I mean, I've been in a group of women and had a woman drop off our group, hop on a Peloton with a guy, and finish 10 minutes. A huge train of guys, and it would never see her again. So she just broke the rules, but she didn't get caught. It's the thing is, like, if you're a guy in a race, you can probably draft with any guy who's in a race, and you're not going to get your hand slapped. Maybe if you're gunning for a podium, you might get caught. But with women, you can't hide as easily. Wouldn't you say that, Kristen? And,
100%.
So you can easily end up alone in the middle of nowhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, if you're going to play by the rules, for sure.
Yeah. Last year we had such a strong group, right, Kristen? Going into Montpelier, we had like 9 women. There were a couple of pros ahead of us who had decided it'd be really fun to sprint literally right after neutral, right, Kristen? The sprinting started.
Okay.
That's
and I knew they were going to do that, but last year was brutal. I mean, the rain.
You lost your glasses.
I lost my glasses, and it rained the whole time.
Rained for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. So you can definitely have a long day of 100+ miles solo as a woman. Just because if you lose the group, then you're in that in between of you're too fast. The girls behind you aren't going to catch you, but you're not going to catch the front. It's brutal.
And that whole mental struggle of, okay, I might be riding 80 miles alone, and how am I going to get myself through this and talk myself through this? And am I willing to do this?
Exactly.
And last year when we got into Montpelier, trying to find a porta potty, and like our group just broke up trying to find a porta potty. And then I saw these women going by drafting with men. They're like, hop on. And we're like, we can't do that.
Why not?
Don's like, do it. The worst thing, if they're just going to slap your hands and you might get a 1-minute penalty or whatever, just do it. So I don't know. I've always avoided it, but I guess the race rules are a discussion for another day.
We'll bring Brent Chambers on and have a discussion.
Let's hammer it out.
Tiff, maybe talk for a bit about how you manage everything: racing, riding, training, your life. obviously with 2 riders in the house. How do you balance it all? How do you manage it all?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think like the search for balance is kind of the human quest and the
Mm.
challenge of a lifetime. And it's never, we're never fully in balance and always like tweaking and adjusting. Um, I try to put God and family first in my life. Those are my top priorities, and everyone will have their own priorities. I spend a lot of free time volunteering with refugees, and I like to teach art in the grade school. And I find I'm happiest when I give, what I need to God and my family and volunteerism and the things that I believe in. So I mean, that's just like my short speech on life. But as far as cycling goes, I believe in Newton's laws of motion, and object in motion tends to stay in motion. So I'm basically always riding. And it kind of goes back to that bike medicine thing for me. It just feels good. It's part of my life, right? It's just what we do. But the way that we Boise folks train for Lodoja, when I'm doing Lodoja, and there are times I've just been like, I'm not doing it this year because I needed to not do it mentally. And anyone who's done it, I'm sure understands that. But when I am training, it's hard to not get burned out. And, I welcome other people's comments on how to not burn out. But, I found myself just after the millionth interval in August, just going, wow, I'm not really having fun anymore. And, it kind of becomes a job that you're almost dreading. And you start questioning so many life choices, right, Stu?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So I guess I have to ride for fun and when I'm feeling that way leading into Lodoja, I really have to just do a lot of riding for fun. And sometimes that gets frustrating riding with people like my husband who are just go, go, go. It's like, guys, we can just ride for fun. It's not a race, right? It's hard to convince the guys that sometimes. I think Kristen can probably relate to that.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, and also I just have to take days off, sometimes time off. But I'm basically always riding, but sometimes I have to just make myself ride easier, hook up with some cyclists who are more casual and just go for easy rides, do some sightseeing, just try to make it fun.
Yeah. How can it not be fun with Toby? Come on.
Toby is so fun. Shout out to Toby Bingham. Toby sings. He is hilarious. He always has like 80s tunes going in one ear, and he's singing. He's kind of Mr. Sunshine.
He is
Mr. Personality. He makes it fun, and we do some fun daytime rides. Toby has a Tuesday train. I guess it's the Thursday train now, but we go out on the day and we do things that would not be allowed on a more serious Saturday. Sightseeing, casual, silly things, photo shoots. So yeah, he makes it
fun. Maybe talk a bit about, unless Kristen, any follow-up questions, comments?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
I want to hear
how you balance it, Kristen.
Yeah.
How I balance
all of it.
All of it. Wow. I think I try not to take it all too seriously. And I don't want to be like the downer, but there's times I have to remind everybody that we are amateur athletes, and when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, there are so many things like more important than the QOMs and the times and the events. And it's hard to balance because you are putting so much time, effort, and energy into this thing, and you want to be really good at it. And most people who do it are that personality, right? They want to be the best. They want to ride the best, wear the best. And I think that's awesome. I think it's great to have that perspective of, if you're going to do something, you do it all and you do it right. But at the same time, like, the counterbalance of that is for me to just kind of remind myself, like, I have these other hats that are just as important. Like, I'm a mom and I'm a wife, and I have to sort of just kind of keep that in check, that like, I'm not getting paid for this. This is not top priority. And so when it starts to feel too heavy, or maybe I put too much pressure on myself, that's like, I just have to kind of remind myself, what's most important. And at the end of the day, why am I doing it? And I'm doing it hopefully to be a better mom, a better wife, a better person. Does that make sense? So,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a constant reminder, because, we put so much time into it. We put a lot of money into it. We put a lot of everything into it. And I think it's easy to let it kind of warp your mind into thinking like, after all of that, like, this has to be the priority. Laude is the priority, or whatever it is. So, sort of just that constant reminder that we should be doing this for fun. Anyway.
I agree. I love what you said. And I've put a lot of pressure on myself, like to win races and things. And the week before Lodoja, when you're just like physically ill with worry,
Mhm.
you just have to remind yourself, that I am not defined by that. Cycling, I love to ride a bike. I'm a cyclist. That's part of who I am, but it doesn't define my worth or who I am. And like you say, I have my family and things that are much more important than the outcome of a race. And I have to like physically talk myself through the pressure I put on myself too.
Hmm.
And I think dealing with like fear of failure, or it's okay if I choose not to compete. It's okay to just ride. It's hard to kind of have that self-talk and hammering out, what I want to be. And because a lot of the satisfaction and the thrill comes from pushing yourself to the limits and finding out what you can do, even in my old age, to push, but also just finding the time to say, it's okay, I'm going to pass on that one.
Yeah.
I think it takes, like, you almost have to be more vulnerable to say, I'm not competing today. Because I think we have this idea that everyone's going to judge our outcome and then pin that to us. Does that make sense? I know I do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, well, if I don't hang, or if I don't finish, or if I don't PR, or whatever the stupid bar that I've set for myself is, sometimes it's like, it takes more vulnerability for me to be like, I just can't do it today. To like be honest with myself and be like, I just can't do that today. And that's okay. But I think as athletes that do take it, seriously, it's hard to say, I can't do it today. Like, I just don't have it today.
It
And I
is.
think that's something we have to
And that
learn.
FOMO thing is always like haunting and like tapping you on the shoulder, but maybe you should have done that. Look what you missed out on. Look at their posts. You missed that ride. You could have done that. What if you would have gotten
It's like the
that
month before
segment?
Lotus up, and you're looking at everyone's Stravas and you're like, why are they writing so much? Like, I'm already not writing that much. And then you start to think like, I'm behind.
I'm not
I don't
prepared. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's more prepared than me. She has more miles. She did that. Yeah. It's kind of a crazy game, but yeah.
Guys,
Trying to.
this is why I think that we should sign up together in the cycle sport category and just do a mass 60
Yes.
people loaded just
Yes.
all of us together working for a 9-hour loaded, just 60 people, just having
I
fun.
totally sign up for that.
I would so
sign
sign
up
up
for
for
that.
it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. And Don can sit out front if he feels that is necessary. He can pull us.
I think he would actually love it. He would actually love it. And that would be so fun.
It would be so
And
fun.
I think there's some guys up here who totally jump on that. It's a great
All right.
idea.
Hey, if we have gotten this far, let's connect a few dots that we haven't connected. Tell us about where you ride. Tell us about Team Real. And then, so if you don't know, Tiff and I and the team, we ride together essentially almost every morning on Zwift for 6 months. I mean, we're riding together for 6 months. The other 6 months, you are in Idaho riding with Team Real. Could you just just talk real quick about what that team is, how it works? And if you follow Tiff on Strava, that's not the best part. she and Dawn are official members of this team of Mi Duele, and you guys have bought kits for the last 3 years, and that is the best thing ever. And I don't know, sometimes when your pictures come through and you guys are in the middle of Team Real and your Duele kits, I feel I swell with pride, Tiff.
That's
You
so
gotta
awesome.
know.
We love your team. Our team, our Salt Lake team. We're the Boise chapter
Boise chapter, very good.
of Midway. And yeah, like Stu said, that connection started back with Stu and Don racing Lodija together, and obviously Midway's incredibly well represented, and it's been awesome for Kristen and I to race together. I just wish she and I could ride together more during the year. But yeah, Team Real it's a club, and it anyone can join. We're pretty loosely organized, and there are many very recreational riders associated with Team Real, and there's kind of a more hardcore group that's probably usually 10 to 15 core guys and me. and we get more people joining us all the time. You know, sometimes someone will hop on with us on a ride and end up, you know, wearing our kit a few months later. And so it's a pretty welcoming group. And like I say, there's this kind of hardcore group that the greater group who doesn't ride with, say, on Saturdays and doesn't train with. And I don't know if this is interesting because I'm new to your GroupMe app and see how you guys communicate. We have a Slack app that has all these different channels for all these different conversations. So it's quite hilarious. Like there's literally one called the Butt Crack of Dawn.
Oh my god.
With DAWN, not DON. So luckily it's not Dawn's.
That's the name of this podcast. I'm going to name it that.
The Butt Crack of Dawn DON.
Oh, that is so funny. Yeah, we were joking about his. Anyway, I'm going to move on. But yeah, that's for the early morning rides. There's Dawn's torture chamber conversation on Slack. That's for the Lodija training workouts. Dawn kind of organizes the workouts.
DON.
That's DON's torture chamber. Saturday rides, local rides. There's a separate one for Lodija. There's one for Sawtooth. So we have all these little channels we communicate on, and yeah, it's a great group. Really great group.
They are a great group.
You guys know Taylor. You've seen his videos.
Yep. Taylor rides with us. I've ridden. There's always a Team Real competitor in my Lodija group. So it's always really fun to connect with you guys. So very cool. Let's talk about Zwift for a minute, and then we'll wrap up into your advice. Maybe your history there, because your and Dawn history of Zwift is actually pretty cool. Can you talk about it for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, Dawn, we were joking about this recently. No one really knows what their Zwift user number. Everyone has a rider number, and Dawn was probably one of the first few hundred Zwift riders. Hilarious.
I just gave him the yellow jersey, and his number's like 1,074. I mean, it's like everyone else's is like 743,970. I mean, it is crazy.
Yeah, his is crazy. Mine is low compared to many new ones, but Dawn's is ridiculous because he started riding years and years ago. I can't even remember. Zwift was beta for sure when he discovered it and was telling me about this new app, and he was using it when he had a broken collarbone after a crash. And I think it was like 2015, maybe 14, that we first kind of Zwifted to stay in shape over the winter. You know, prior to that, we were doing spin class and that type of thing over the winter. And we joined this team called ODZ. And it was at the time just a really fast growing dynamic team. It was one of the first Zwift teams as Zwift was emerging in the beta phase. And so ODZ was bringing a lot of riders in and organizing a lot of things. And they were doing so many fun rides, a lot like what the Dwollies do now. And there was this Thursday ride called Wagner's Wagon, and we have this friend of ours, Chris Haskell, local guy here in Boise, who would literally do game shows on Discord during that ride. Like movie trivia, there were prizes. He had a soundboard. He was like writing and operating a soundboard.
Oh my
In
gosh.
fact, my friend Charisse announced that she was pregnant to the team on that game show. Like they had pre-recorded all these segments of her like reading those things from that movie Raising Arizona. It was the weirdest thing, but yeah, we had some great times with ODZ in the old days.
I mean, that had to have been, I didn't start riding on Zwift till I think the winter of 2018-19. So you're talking about probably what, 2016-17?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think. Charisse had her baby in 2016, but we were on that year probably 2 winters before that.
Okay.
So I think maybe 2014, 15 might have been our first winter on Zwift. And yeah, like Charisse and I would race back in those early days of Zwift, and ODZ was running some women's races, and there weren't that many women racing. I mean, this was before esports. It's like we're talking about decades ago, but this all evolves, in the matter of a couple of years. But before there were like professionals racing on Zwift. But yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to hear.
And terrible.
It's fun to hear you and Don talk about early Zwift, where there was like 2 routes and everyone's avatar looked the same. And I mean, it's crazy to even think that existed, but it was only like 4 years ago. So
I know, it's so funny. And there was only Watopia.
Yeah.
And Watopia didn't have the Alp or the Epic or the desert. It was basically the tunnel, the ocean tunnel and the KOMs, and you just kind of go around that little loop was kind of all there was. I think they called it Jarvis Island at first. Jarvis was like an early developer or something. That big tree as you go through the tunnel and come out is called Jarvis's tree or something. And there were so few riders on Zwift at that time that to sort of feel like you had company, they had all these little blue ghost riders.
Weird.
So you would just like be riding with all these blue ghosts. It's pretty funny. It's changed a lot.
Any favorite memory? Are there good memories on Zwift? Is there anything that you remember? Any favorites from everything you've done there that stand out?
Yeah, I have a memory. I won a race on Zwift that was this really long race that there actually was a commentator for. And it was one that was kind of advertised, and all the ODZ guys were watching it. And Charisse had gone off the front toward the end of the race. And then I came in and sprinted. It was in London, and sprinted past her and won it. And Don was in the kitchen listening to the color commentary. I mean, can you imagine there's actually a color? I mean, you could, for like
we had one
races.
So fun.
But this is like old lady racing on Zwift, and Don was like cheering in the kitchen and like replayed it like for his employees at work and something. It's just so funny that it almost seemed like something big had happened, and it was some like nobody's Zwift race, but
Tiff,
good times.
Come on.
Good times. But honestly, riding with the Dwolleys has been so fun the last couple of winters, and your creativity and the fun ideas and crazy things you're putting together just make it really fun. You're doing kind of what ODZ used to do in the old days, but ODZ is kind of fizzling out a little bit on Zwift. So much fun.
It is fun. I agree. I think it's fun in a painful, suffering, sweaty kind of way. Just very
really, really, really sweaty. But it gets us through the winter. I mean, we're definitely ready to go outside when spring comes, but it's better than the spin class and much better than staring at a wall.
Spin class. We talked about that yesterday. That was fun. Very good. All right, well, let's come in for landing here, Tiff. You've got some great advice. Where do you want to start there? Let's maybe some training tips for everybody that you've learned over the years. Do you want to do that?
Sure. I'm not sure that I'm should be giving experienced cyclist advice, but but I see a lot of people who want to get faster, who are maybe wanting to race and want to get faster, and including like spouses of some of our riders here in Boise. And the thing that worked for me is to ride with faster riders, and to always have someone pushing you obviously is the key to success. We've talked about having fun. I think you still have to have fun, and Kristen addressed that, like when we're competitive people, and wanting to be at the top of our sport, I think we can make the mistake of pushing too long and too hard. And I know as we get older, we need more rest. And mentally, I need it, to keep it fun. I also have experienced just how much strength training can change the game. I'm too lazy to do it right now, but the winters when I've done a lot of strength training, it's been, the most fit I've ever been, and made me definitely faster. Probably one of the best ways to increase FTP.
Nice.
Over the winter. Yeah. I think I probably addressed those other ones.
Cool. What about just young riders? We actually do. Kristen mentioned we got some 20-year-olds. You've seen a lot of people come in and out of cycling, I bet. And any advice you'd give to somebody starting, or a younger rider with babies, like young? We've got guys with just babies.
It's so hard with the little ones, and tricky for those, for those families where the husband and wife are both riding and there's babies at home. And we definitely were there at one point. It takes a lot of coordination and maybe handing off the kids sometimes. We definitely made it not very fun for our older kids sometimes when Donna and I were out riding and our baby was waking up and the kids were having to take care of the baby, and we were maybe gone a little bit too long.
That's a good experience.
Probably most people who listen to this know about hydration and nutrition, but one thing that I think we can help young riders, like is our son has ridden in NICA, and these kids getting into mountain biking. It's amazing what they don't know about nutrition. And when I see what these kids are eating before a race, and most of them don't know how to fuel during a race. I mean, if they're a sixth grader doing one lap on a NICA course, they don't need to fuel during a race. But these varsity kids don't know what to drink. Some of them do, because there are obviously some that are incredibly experienced. But Donna and I have found that maybe the way that we can help these young NICA kids is just knowing how to hydrate, about nutrition, how to eat on a bike. My daughter started riding with me when she was like 12, and when she was 14, she did her first century, and she could not drink a water bottle on a bike. Like, she had not figured that out. And so we would have to pull over and I'd have to make her drink, because she would regularly bonk. She was so strong and fiercely competitive, and she wanted to go, but she would forget to drink and eat. So I think with kids, I mean, and if someone has a significant other that's new, they need to learn how to grab a bottle and how to eat on the go. And it's a skill that, takes time and practice.
Definitely. Very cool. Kristen, any final questions for Tiff before we wrap it up?
No, I don't think so.
You're not dying to know any secrets, tips?
I mean, I have asked Tiff in the past, like, how she can Zwift as much as she Zwifts. I mean, the year after my knee, when I tried to hang with her at Laude, and it just did not happen. And I had to ask her, like, how? Because if I'm not doing a workout, look, I'm at the gym. Like, I'd so much rather be doing something else. I just think it's incredible. Like I don't even know what you call it, just grit to be able to get up and ride on that thing, like as strong as you ride, Tiff. It's crazy. It's awesome. I wish I could do it. I just struggle.
Oh, you're way too nice. I think it's just I'm weird. Like I have a weird like affinity for it. It's hard to get up in the morning, and sometimes our garage is so cold because we Zwift in our garage. You guys are in the house, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, when it's in the teens or single digit, that garage is so cold. Like I have to wear a jacket for the first while, and there are many mornings I don't turn on the fan because it's too cold. So I'm freezing, but I'm sweating. It's terrible.
Oh,
But I think it just keeps me going. It's that Newton's law, it just keeps me in motion.
Yeah.
And I love being able to stay in shape over the winter. Like the first winter I Zwifted, I was amazed, like that I could just hit the real roads in the spring and I was ready to go.
yeah.
I hadn't lost this huge amount of fitness. So I think that was just exciting. But I've thought about Zwift, like what it is that I like, and it really is the social aspect for me that's so fun. I talk too much, so I'm just apologizing to all the dualies right now. I just need to shut up. I
It's
know I
not
do.
talking, Tiff.
It's
It's
chatting.
typing.
Just chatting. I can't even chat and write. Like I'm just like trying to keep my focus on staying in it.
Yeah, they do. They put the hurt on. They do. They make me hurt big time. That one on Thursday was pretty fun. That Yorkshire,
That
the
was
Yorkshire
fun.
pudding really wasn't that
Yorkshire
tasty
pudding.
after all.
No, that was not.
But yeah, you guys make it fun and just keep me coming back. I think if I didn't have that social aspect with the dualies and something new every week,
I agree.
it'd be hard.
Yeah.
But just need to come out more, Kristen.
Yeah.
I need you.
I burn out. I gotta like switch it up.
She
But,
just
yeah.
watches
That's
mine.
good, though.
We're next to each other and she's just watching going, what are you doing? That is just
But I
So
think
that's
part of that is knowing what you need too, because I have friends who go super chill over the winter too, and they can't ride hard all summer unless they go chill over the winter. So part
Yeah.
of it, I think, is knowing what
That's
you
smart.
need and like what you need to keep going so that you
Yeah.
don't just end up hating it.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
You guys, thank you. Tiff, we admire you. I really do wish we were closer together so we could ride. I think Toby and Dawn send me a text almost every other week that's like, can we just please coordinate something where we ride together? So it's fun to introduce you to the team, to people that don't know you, and just share your story a little bit. So thank you for the time. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me. You guys are the best.
Thanks.
It's a
Kristen?
privilege to know you and ride with you guys.
Thanks.